Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Wednesday, and welcome to more Higurashi When They Cry. Normally, I play this only in October, but since I still have like 5 chapters left to complete, I decided to play one in April instead, halfway through the year. Or halfway towards October, I suppose. And Chapter 4 is supposed to be a lot shorter, so I think we can manage it. Welcome to the stream, everybody. Turn out the lights and prepare to get spooked. Hello, Proxima. Hello, DX. Welcome to you both. Here's hoping that the YouTube chat is going to work for the game. It does! Let's go! It wasn't working in tests, but it is now. Let's go. I'm very happy about that. Oh, yeah. I'm excited for Higurashi. It's always a trip. Oh yes, white text on a white background. I always like that. All right, I'll move. Oh, that's the wrong one. I want the chat box. I'll move this down. I want it to be above the like in-game text box. So we'll see how that works. All right. So if we go to configuration, yeah, I kind of like the default settings for a lot of this. Hide user. No, I like the user interface. Yes, we want English character sprites. I mean, again, I have installed the mod, so what's the mod button? There's the mod button. I think this time. So I usually play with I think it's the Manga Gamer sprites, because the console ones, yeah, console is the PS2 ones where they actually have their mouths move. Manga Gamer is the newer sprites, and then there's the original ones, which I'm not as big a fan of, but I like also switching back and forth. Lip sync on is pretty nice. So show CGs, heck yes. Sprite style, yep. Backgrounds, the original. Oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. Stretching mode on, whatever. Audio. So I still don't know the difference between all these soundtracks. I can never remember which one is which. I think the fan OST. I think the Manga Gamer is the Steam one, and then the Ho/Jin is the console one. I kind of liked doing the console soundtrack for Chapter 3, so I think we'll go with that one. The Steam soundtrack is good, but it gets a bit repetitive. Maybe we'll finally learn about Riko with that syringe from Mion's story. Maybe! That was way back in Chapter 2. She did have a syringe on... Her corpse had a syringe on her. I'm not sure... Okay, it's weird, because it would make sense for Rika to be the next character that the chapter is surrounded with, and she is the, like, icon on Chapter 4 in Steam. But the cast party last time said that Shion was going to be the protagonist, or the main character for this one, so I personally thought we already had the Shion/Mion chapter, but I don't know if they're referring to Chapter 4 or Chapter 5, because Chapter 4, I'm not sure if it was like, it's kind of supposed to be like a little bonus thing or whatever. Hey, Mobius, how's it going? YouTube added its own emotes now. Oh, you can use them on my channel. Let's go. That's awesome. Enough people must have migrated from Twitch and complained. I mean, you can do YouTube custom emotes. And you've been able to do that for a while. The problem is you need to set up, like, YouTube memberships, which is, like, basically Steam subscribers, or Twitch subscribers, where they pay, and I don't want that. So, anyhow, we're going to start. Himatsubushi, for you, the final mystery. Time-killing chapter. I now entrust you with all the mysteries hidden within Higurashi When They Cry. However comical it may be, if you have reached any conjecture, then you have passed. This final novel is a meager reward for you. Conjecture is impossible. You have the right to reject this story. What does that mean? This is not the final chapter. There are 4 more after this. Conjecture is impossible. You have the right... This is basically like, if you don't like the story, that's fine. It doesn't have to be canon. Okay, interesting. Let's start. Laughter. Let's go. This arc includes choices that were added in the console version. These choices result in dialogue changes and can lead to bad ends. Do you want to see these choices? Skip additional choices, show only the content from the PC version. Prompt additional choices from the console version. Prompt choices and highlight the correct answers. Oh! Wait, that's interesting. I do like having choices in visual novels. At the same time, though, if Given how I am versus how the characters are, I feel like if I make choices, I will get to the bad end because I'll think I'm going to the good end, and they're like, "No, you were supposed to creep on Rena. That's how you get the good ending." This is the final chapter of the question arcs. After this, we get into the answers. Oh, okay. What do people think? I'm kind of leaning towards. We can make save. You know what? We can make saves and go back if we make bad choices. So yeah, maybe. Yeah. Let's do it. Who is the criminal, you ask? Don't we search for them in this story? Who is the criminal, you ask? Do you even know what the criminal did? Who's the criminal? Who is the criminal who will kill me now? Frederica Bernkastel. Her again? She always has these weird poems at the beginning. There's the question and answer sections. This might be the last question. Midsummer 1985. Oh man, that was back when I was in high school. I had misread the time and ended up arriving too early. The schedule board flipped with a series of clacks. Wait, this is the different text box. Text box settings, where is it? Oh, the mod hotkey. Where is the text box setting? Text box window. Make text show at the bottom of the screen. Yes. That's what I like. Yeah, there we go. I like this one much better. The schedule board flipped with a series of clacks. My flight to Sapporo was still a bit later on. I still had over an hour before boarding. Well, I might as well close my eyes for a bit and on that bench over there then. I came here directly from work, so maybe the fatigue from that was making me sleepy. Finding a suitable bench, I put my luggage on the seat next to me and settled down. Akasaka, huh. I sighed like an old man. I had hoped to stay young forever, but had become splendidly middle-aged. Apparently the rumor that even people in the latter half of their 20s experience a decline in their physical strength wasn't a lie. It had been mind-numbingly busy at work lately, so I rarely had any time to myself. This might have been the first time I'd been able to enjoy a journey alone like this since I was a student. It looks like this is not Keiichi, this is Akasaka. Whatever his name is. The reason behind this trip was to meet an old friend. It was a bit strange to call him an old friend. In fact, it might be better to call him a bad one. After retiring a couple of years ago, he moved to Sapporo, his mother's hometown. His mother passed away soon after, and he was now peacefully enjoying his second lease on life. His name was... Oh! Karaudo Uisi! Yeah, the head detective. He was a former detective from the primary investigation unit at the station in Okinomiya, XX Prefecture. To be honest, the only direct contact we ever had didn't last more than 3 days. After that, we exchanged New Year's cards, but never met again. So this would be the first time meeting him in 7 years. Oh, yay, Uisi, so he knows Akasaka. Interesting. In other words, we met 7 years ago. In 1978. There was something I just had to ask, to talk to him about concerning that time. To explain that, it was impossible not to recall the incident that happened back then. That kidnapping, the details and resolution of which were resigned to darkness. Also, it was impossible not to recall a certain mysterious girl. My name is Mamoru Akasaka. It was a year that had been strangely hot, even though it was only June. Man, I'm flubbing up the dialogue kind of a lot. Where's my trusty tool? Oh, wait. Oh, do we get to see teacher? This doesn't look like the classroom. That's a whiteboard, not a blackboard. Oh. Hey, Liz, welcome to the stream. Oh, right. Yeah, that's fine. Don't worry, I'll get the VODs up on YouTube whenever we get the chance. Yeah, this is not good teacher. This is... Watch for cars.
明日の教科書の準備は必ず寝る前にしておくんですよ。
Do it. Clatter, clatter, clatter. The lively sounds of children running towards the hallway. Is this a different school? This, I swear this looks like the Clannad Street. The unique high-pitched voice of youth. The energetic shrill of the cicadas went completely unheard by their ears. Children, returning home from school, split off one by one from their groups of friends as they went through intersections in the residential area. Even though there were several of them in a group as they left the school, as they got closer to their homes, their numbers dwindled. That's why the fewer friends you were walking home with acted... Wait, what? That's why the fewer friends you were walking home with acted as an indicator that you were that much closer to your destination. Oh, okay.
じゃあな。会うわよ。また明日ね。
Good night, Liz. Have a good night's sleep. He finally parted ways with his last friend. A van was parked at a bend in the road. Konada and Higurashi had art together, apparently. I mean, I like the art styles of both. The window was open, the sound of the radio leaking outside. Also, this is definitely a new track. I have not heard this one before. It must have been on the news or something. It must have been the news or something.
たため、道路交通法違反、公務執行妨害で3名を逮捕しました。
Well, that's what happens when you protest in the middle of the street.
一連のひなみ沢ダム建設反対をめぐる運動は、先月の機動隊との流血事件を境に、過
Oh,
激化の
wait,
一
this is
途
a
をたどっており、
flashback. The dam project was way earlier, so... Oh, so this is back, like, around that time. Interesting.
警察では過激
So this is
な
a
活動家
completely
によ
new time
る
period,
次の事件を
technically.
警戒しています。
Those Dane radicals.
先週も検察庁庁舎前での犬飼建設大臣への直訴事件があったばかりで、
Hey, X-Dude, welcome to the stream. The boy's ears perked up at the name Inukai. At that moment, a man's face peeked out suddenly from the window of the van. His behavior was a little different than that of a man looking around to see if there was any incoming traffic before he opened the door to his vehicle. His eyes meeting suddenly with the unfamiliar man, the boy panicked slightly.
ウグイス OK。
Nightingale?
ひばり OK。前後2ブロック確保した。
Okay, secret agent man. The man in the passenger seat whispered quietly. Nodding in acknowledgement, the man opened the door and stood before the boy.
君、犬飼俊樹君？
While asking that, the man peered at the boy's name tag. Toshiki Inukai. The name was written plainly there. Okay, so this is going to be very different from the first 3 chapters, unless this is a temporary flashback. The phone rang for a 3rd time. If he reached out, he could easily pick up the receiver. However, he was concerned that if he picked it up before it had even finished ringing once, whoever was on the other end of the line would think him a fairly cheap person. That's why he normally never picked up the phone until the 3rd ring. Even he thought it was a worthless habit. However, his thinking that there isn't much meaning in waiting for just 3 rings, wouldn't waiting for 5 be alright, was very much a reality. His mind filled with such trifling thoughts. He picked up the phone after the 3rd ring had finished, its reverb dampened by his action.
はい。もしもし。もしもし。
He knew that sometimes due to a malfunction at the switchboard, calls didn't connect well. At those times, it was best to hang up and let the person on the other end call again. Thinking that, the moment he began to hang up the phone, he sensed that he was definitely connected after all. He felt the presence of the person on the other end of the line, keeping silent.
もしもし。
Either speak or don't. There's phone anxiety and then there's this. There was no way they didn't hear his question. What was the meaning of this? It wasn't like he didn't know that people could use silent calls to harass others. However, he'd never received a call like that until today. Maybe he was just lucky before, but he didn't believe that he would receive such a call on this phone. There was no direct calls to or from this line. Everything had to go through an operator. Therefore, there was absolutely no way the call would be connected unless it was verified that there was someone else on the other end of the line. That's why he didn't understand how to deal with this silent call, and instead settled into confusion.
あんた、誰だか知らないが、用がないなら切るよ。また、かけ直してください。
Intending that to be a parting line, he made to slam down the receiver. It was at that moment the person on the other end spoke for the first time.
あなたが名乗ってくれないから困ってんですよ。
What the
あ
heck?
んたが犬飼大臣じゃないなら、さっさと電話を切
Oh
って
no,
くださ
not
い。
kidnapper. He's using a voice changer too. He couldn't help but be surprised by the extremely strange voice on the other end of the line. Was there a human alive who could speak with this hoarse and metallic voice? No. This was a voice he had heard somewhere before. That was the kind of voice that was on those lowbrow documentaries that they'd use when they wanted to hide the identity of a speaker, wasn't it? The voice he was hearing over the line was exactly that.
あんた、誰？
Oh, I think we already know. The name was Kidnapper.
だからそれはこっちが聞いてるんですよ。あんた犬飼大臣じゃないの？
He, Inukai, hesitated to answer. Unable to discern the intent of this suspicious phone call, he had a vague feeling that something was off. He thought about hanging up the phone and asking the operator who initiated the call. However, he forced himself to restrain that urge, and for the time being chose to state his name and listen.
そうです。犬飼です。名乗りましたよ。だから、あんたも名乗ってくださいよ。
You can call me Napper, Kidnapper.
私の名前なんてどうでもいい。
Oh, that also works.
まずあなたがどういう立場に置かれているか、それを認識するところから始めましょう。あなたは今自分の席で電話をしていますね。ではあなたの席の右側の一番下の
Don't do
引
it.
き出
There's
し
a
を
bomb.
開けてみてください。
The lowest drawer to the right of the minister's chair. There was a lock on it. Not enough to function as a safe, but nevertheless it was a drawer that contained some valuable things. That's why Inukai thought that the person wanted some of the important information contained within that drawer.
すまんが、開けるつもりはないよ。自分の名前も名乗れんやつの言いなりになる言われはない。
He's playing it cool.
引き出しを開けてくれないならこの電話を切ります。きっと後悔することになりますよ。まずは引き出しを開けてから考えてもいいんじゃないですか。
Inukai didn't like following orders from this suspicious person one bit. However, he was concerned about what the man said about regretting it, so he decided to open the drawer. He took the small key he kept stowed in his wallet and unlocked the drawer. His hand stopped right before he opened it. What if there was a bomb inside, and it would explode if the drawer was opened? That's what I thought. That delusion took hold of him. He quelled that instinct and opened it. Hi, I took your son, nephew, grandson. Have a good day. Yep.
開けてくれましたか？そこにあるものが何かわかりますよね。
How do you know it's there?
これはどういうことだ？
Is it Mask to Mask's calling card?
おい、
どういうことか説明する必要なんかないですよね。時間を差し上げますので少しお考えください。また後ほどこちらから連絡いたします。それでは失礼。
おい、待て。もしもし、もしもし。
The call had already ended. That would not change no matter how much he yelled at it. Even still, Inukai, without realizing that, continued yelling into the receiver for a while. The drawer was still open. On top of the folders crammed into the drawer, it lay there. Toshiki Inukai, written in plain lettering on a grade schooler's name tag, just lying there. Enshrined there, completely out of place, as if it were cowering. This is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to actual persons or organizations is entirely coincidental. Sure it is. Okay, that was just the elaborate prologue. Do you remember Yuki? This picture. This is where I first proposed to you. That brief moment before you nodded back. You probably wouldn't know just how much it seemed like an eternity to me. Yes, I would never have thought that amount of time could feel like an eternity. Compared to how long I had to wait for you to propose to me, it was. From the moment I met you until today. Compared to the time I've spent since I was born, it might only be a brief period, but they were definitely precious, beautiful days that deserve to be called an eternity. That time continues even now. From now on, I wonder if it'll be a boy. Or maybe a girl? Either one is fine. Boy or girl. Either way, it's living proof that we love each other. If it's a boy, we'll name it after you, Mamoru. If it's a girl, we'll put the Yuki from my name in hers. Thinking about names is so fun that in the end we still hadn't decided yet. There's still time to puzzle over it. Not that long of a time, actually. You see, Yuki, there's something I have to apologize for today. It's about your job. Sorry. It looks like an annoying bit of work has come up. In the worst case, I might not be able to be there for the delivery. It's fine. You have a very important job. What you do protects the way we live. Compared to you, it's nothing. Please, go ahead. When you return, I'll be waiting here with our child. Thank you. Also, I'm sorry. Please don't apologize. If you feel guilty about it, then you can just atone. If I atone that much, well, no matter how much money I have, it won't be enough. It's a joke. Now, go on. Is this Higurashi or a romantic episode of CSI? Interesting. I don't know. As I left the room, I bumped into an elderly man. It was Yuki's father. In other words, my father-in-law.
お父さん
Oh, it's Akasaga. This is him.
邪魔する気はなかったからな廊下で待たせてもらったよ聞き耳を立てるつもりはなかったが聞こえてしまった生きたまえ幸恵はああいう娘だ何があっても自分が君の枷になることを望むまい
私はこれまで幸恵に様々な犠牲を強いてきました出産という人生の節目にまで彼女に犠牲を強いることを
What's going on here?
君が本当にそう思うなら仕事が終わったら幸恵のために時間を割きなさい
Don't they get at least a little paternity leave?
君が仕事を投げ出して付き添ってくれるよりもそうした方がきっと幸恵も喜ぶだろう
ありがとうございます
君がとても大切な仕事をしていることは私もよく知っている自分の仕事を誇りに思いなさい幸恵は君が見事難題を解決して凱旋するのを楽しみにしている
I figured Akasaga was an adult. He was meeting with Uisi. Only adults do that. Except, you know, all of the main guys from the story.
はい
I jumped into the taxi that was waiting outside. Compared to the time when I first got here, the numbers on the fare meter had grown considerably. You kept the meter running? It seemed the modest time Yuki and I had spent together wasn't so modest from an objective point of view.
待たせてすみませんやってください
いえいえ
He's like, no worries, I get paid more.
では参りますよ
Step on it, to the hospital. The taxi jerked as it changed gears to accelerate. Soon burying the hospital, my wife was in behind a throng of buildings. Never mind, he's leaving the hospital. I see. If it was to end up as a really troublesome ordeal, I probably wouldn't be returning for quite some time. To call a rookie like me, and on top of that, one who's off duty, it seemed that the section chief was calling for all hands on deck. The veteran upper brass gathering on an emergency basis happened occasionally. This is the first time, though, that I experienced everybody gathering together like this. Whatever was happening, there was no doubt it was going to be something novel. Right when my wife was ready to give birth. If I wanted to spend the time to curse my misfortunes, I'd be here all day. Even the verdant ginkgo trees lining the street that always brightened my mood seemed to lack some of their usual luster. Tomotaki's gonna be your favorite. Yeah, we don't know what Akasaka looks like. He could be stunningly handsome. We don't know. Eventually, well, Proxima probably does. Eventually, the government office came into view. Briefly holding my breath, I let the feelings of tension course through my body once again. I had to remember the work I was doing was important, necessary, and difficult. I composed myself and sharpened my wit. Ready. The taxi stopped in front of the building. Alright, Tokyo, the Metropolitan Police Department, Public Safety Division, in Kasumika. I can't pronounce these words.
全員揃いました赤坂君ブラインドを下ろしてくれる
What is so important that I have to miss the birth of my child? The blinds were usually closed when they needed to use the projector, or if the discussion was going to contain some particularly disturbing content. The blinds closed with a satisfying sound, darkening the interior of the room. Immediately, the inside of the room was completely drained of the pleasant morning atmosphere, leaving only behind the cold illumination of the fluorescent lighting. After the supervisor ensured that everyone was present, he nodded to the section chief once again. With everybody on the edge of their seats, the chief stood up solemnly and began to give his report.
推定48時間前建設大臣の孫にあたる建設省幹部の子息が誘拐された模様で
Who
す
did it? Was it Kidnapper? I think that guy's pretty suspicious.
建設大臣は事態を穏便に済ませるため警察へ通報せず要求に応じるものと思われます
It seemed that approximately 48 hours earlier, oh gosh, The Minister of Construction's grandson, who was also the son of one of his senior staff members, was kidnapped. They just said that! The reason why it was phrased that way was because the person in question didn't admit it had happened.
大臣宅の通話を監視した結果、都外からと思われる不審な電話が数件確認されました。誘拐された子供は病気療養中となっているが、通院の形跡はなく、周辺での目撃例もなく、その他いくつかの理由から、事件発生は間違いないものと断定しました。
Here, they omitted the details that brought this incident to light. If you think about it a bit, that meant that before this incident happened, the minister's residence had been under surveillance already. I won't use the word spied upon. Of course, there wouldn't have been the court approval for this, and it would have been very hard to explain to ordinary citizens. However, it was quite an effective method to catch wind of incidents like this before they got worse. I'd like for you to understand that dealing with these cases before they become a problem is the job of the Public Safety Division.
なぜ警察に通報せず要求を鵜呑みに？
大臣たる者が警察を信用できないってんだから。
Well, maybe he's like, hey, if you call the cops, your kid dies. Have you thought about that?
犯人グループは誘拐初期に自分たちが大臣の生活をかなり高度に監視していることを警告し、
Ooh, maybe it's
そ
someone
の
close
証
to
拠
him.
を示した様子です。
After all, it's the people you can't trust who are the most suspicious.
大臣が屈服し、
That's not how that goes.
警察への通報も思いとどまるほどの何かですね。
The actual phrase I was trying to say, it's the people who you know who can be the most dangerous.
警察へ通報してもすぐにわかるぞって？
大臣の近辺に内通者がいる可能性。
Boy, Oki, there may be no moles close to the minister. Several of the higher-ranking members who seem to have experienced this kind of thing let out deep sighs.
犯人グループの
Oh
目的
man,
が
the
要求
minister's
に
son
あるの
got
か
kidnapped
事件そのもの
again?
にあるのかは不明ですが、
That's 3 times now.
いずれにせよ、国益を脅かす事態に発展する可能性が極めて高い。
If their goal was simply to have their demands met for monetary gain, that would have been nice. However, if this was some politically motivated shakeup, things would get a lot more complicated.
被害者の協力がないということは、脅迫内容も要求も一切不明ということか。
本件は内通者の水準がかなり高いと思われるため、当室のみの極秘捜査とします。
How do we know one of the people in this room isn't the mole?
また本件は本日より最優先事項となり、これまでの通常業務を一時凍結して対応します。よろしいですね。
After that, the supervisor continued on, tactfully explaining our course of action. If this incident were to become public, it was possible that the minister's political life would be over. Well, that does happen, you know. I'll spare you the explanation of how the rest of the dominoes would fall, but in the end, support in the Diet would decline. Followed by a no-confidence vote and a snap election. Oh, it's Chancellor Valorum! And it might even expand communist influences. Well, we can't have that. Alright. I'm on board. In other words, we wanted to handle this delicately.
川崎と佐伯は大臣宅、子供宅の通話を24時間監視。
Those dang commies.
大臣の動向を探れ。動きがあるたびに逐一報告せよ。残る各職員は担当団体ごとに本件との関連を調査。
But how is this case related to what we had in the previous 3 chapters?
最近動きが不穏な特殊ラインは集中的にやれ。
Oh, the commies, the Reds, and the Confeds. Nice.
それから外国勢力も水を漏らす
Yeah,
な。
you can't trust America. They're sneaky. I've experienced 1 or 2 unamicable situations before. This, however, was the first time I'd ever seen things get so hectic. Several sophisticated conversations were progressing without the involvement of a rookie like me. I didn't intend to be timid, but I couldn't hide my confusion at this unfamiliar situation.
では柿内に行ってくれ。で、赤坂君は
I snapped back to alertness upon hearing my name called. That's me in every meeting.
はい。
赤坂君は大臣に陳情してきた環境保護団体関連を調査してくれ。
Oh my gosh, yes, it's the Flat Earthers.
中でも
Must be them.
新聞でも騒ぎになってるひなみ沢ダム建設反対の団体をよく調査すること。
Ooh, that's how it... Okay, I see now.
住民団体の仕業とは到底思えないが、すべての可能性を潰していかなくてはならない。
わかりました。ひなみ沢ダム反対か。
直接現地へ行った方がいいだろう。
Okay, now...
現地関係で情報を取れ。
Oh, so okay, so is this like we're playing as Akasaka, and we have to interview the people?
かな
Okay.
り過激な団体らしく、向こうの公安でもマークしてるらしいぞ。
わかりました。現地へ出向します。
奥さん、出産控えてるんだって？こんなタイミングで申し訳ないけど、協力頼むよ。時間がかけられないから、人海戦術で総当たりで行くしかないんだ。
I see.
ええ、わかってます。家内も自分の都合が私の仕事に触ることを嫌いました。
This is not just like a, oh, hey, I want to go to see the opera. This is like, yo, you're having a kid right now.
すまん。ありがとう。
This dang Japanese work
それか
culture.
ら、川崎くん、佐伯くん、君たちの応援には、
Maybe we'll interview Rika when we get there. I didn't want to take a business trip when my wife was about to give birth. Even if I was a little busy, as long as I was in Tokyo, I could head to the hospital right away. On assignment, though, that would be difficult. Even so, I knew the work I was doing was important, and fully understood that I was in no position to be so selfish. I don't think that's so. I think they're being selfish. They can go with one guy, I think. I'd have to make it up to my wife for having to be away at such an important time. My wife, Yuki, would probably forgive me with a smile. The only thing she would hate doing would be holding me back. My male ego, though, at least wished she could have tried to stop me. Sorry, Yuki. I don't mind if you always complain to our child that their father couldn't come to the hospital when they were born because they were too busy with work. Also, did he marry a Yuki from the Clannad flashback? That's headcanon now. Saki and Yuki. Yuki got married to Akasaka. This is happening. The next day, I took the bullet train to Nagoya, and from there, transferred to the train to XX Prefecture. Getting to my destination by land took several hours. Oh yeah, you're not getting there in time for your kid. If I was traveling by air in that amount of time, I could probably get as far as Holmkoln. XX Prefecture was by no means close. I never sat in first class except for work, but whenever I did, the seats seemed stiff. If you think those seats are stiff, you should go into any other class. Closing my eyes, I mentally reviewed the documents I read yesterday. The ground under investigation, the Onigafuchi Guardians. They were a group of residents opposed to the development proposed under the Hinamizawa Dam project. I'm pretty sure, because this is taking place in 85, I believe. I think this is what they said the year was for this one. Clannad, I know Clannad was released in, like, I think the early 2000s. So it's probably this is supposed to take place first, but I'm headcanoning it. There can only be one person named Yuki across all visual novels. The local protests were quite heated and were getting more radicalized. Even limited to what was written in the newspapers, there was bloodshed that occurred during a clash with riot police. Interference with the dam construction, too many to count. The number of petitions, sit-ins, and direct appeals to the relevant organizations were innumerable. As an extension of that, there was a direct appeal to the Minister of Construction the other day.
これがそもそも今回この団体を調査することになったゆえんだ。
The land that they lived on was going to be submerged, so it was no wonder they would go into a frenzy over it. Even given that, though, could they really be capable of doing something like kidnapping the Minister of Construction's grandson in order to halt the project? I bet Shion would. For my take on it, I had serious doubts. This kidnapping plot was extremely sophisticated, and complicated enough that it was believed there was some political backing. This wasn't something that could be pulled off by some group of local protesters. Well, just like the chief said, the plan was to eliminate all possibilities. While I'm in the XX police reference room, taking my time investigating, the higher-ups in Tokyo would probably solve the case. Without my involvement entirely. Even if that was true, I couldn't regret being away from Tokyo while my wife was ready to give birth. This was work. There was really nothing that I could do. Ding dong! The announcement that we would be arriving at our destination soon snapped me back to wakefulness. Gogura, XX Prefecture. Prefecture Public Safety Division.
鬼ヶ淵死守同盟。
I wonder how the choices are gonna... Like, are we gonna have to make a choice of, like, who we... Like, I think this person did it. I think we should go here and talk to this person. That would be kind of interesting.
ええ、地元ではかなり賑わせているようです。
The Prefectural Public Safety Department already had the documents and a cup of tea ready and waiting for me.
早い話がダム反対の住民運動なんですが、 事実上水没地域の住民すべてが決起したと言っていいでしょうね。
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
死臭なんて古風な言い
Except
方が示
Satoko's
す通り、
parents.
相当の決意と覚悟を持った連中です。そこら辺の温和な住民団体とは一線を画すと思っていただいた方がいいですね。
The stack of papers they had prepared for me in the document room was by no means thin.
発足当初はごくごく平均的な住民運動だったんです。それがいつだかの流血事件を境に急にヒートアップしまして、今では暴力主義団体かそれに準じるくらいの過激な勢力に成長したと言えますね。
Violent organizations usually indicate ones that enforce their own ideology without regards to the democratic process. Breaking that down, many of those organizations held extreme left revolutionary ideologies. Considering that, I couldn't help but be surprised that a citizens group would end up going this far. Radical citizens movements happen occasionally. It seemed, however, that this group was nothing as trifling as that. It seemed that I would have to reconsider exactly what the Onikafuchi Guardians was.
鬼ヶ淵死守同盟が要求、つまりダム計画の撤回を求めるために行いうる活動範囲はどの程度でしょうか。
The kidnapping of the minister's grandson was classified. That meant, of course, I couldn't tell the XX Prefectural Department about it either.
ご存知の通り、先週あった犬飼建設大臣への直訴事件では逮捕者も出ています。
Oh, who got arrested?
危険性は十分にありますね。
I skimmed over the list of criminal records related to the Onigafuchi Guardians recorded in the documents. The contents were all violent, not giving me the barest hint of a feeling that these people were trying to uphold the law.
具体的に教えていただけますか。
You know, like battery, assault, murder, kidnapping, crushing people's heads like grapes. The chief opened up a manila envelope, fished out several unorganized sheets, and spread them out on the desk.
建設現場への襲撃事件が最も多かった
Oh
で
yeah,
すね。
wanton vandalism, can't forget that.
初期の頃、電源コードの切断や錠前の鍵穴に石を詰める、投石による事務所の窓ガラス割り等の軽犯罪が頻発していました。
Of course, what really happened first were things like demonstrations, sit-ins, and distribution of pamphlets, lively but democratic forms of protests. However, then the demonstrators and police clashed, which started a riot, leading to numerous injuries and arrests. It was from then on that the Onigafuchi Guardians, like their name implies, began to take on a more demonic form of resistance.
襲撃が度重なれば、
Interesting
地元警
adjective
察
you
によ
used
る
there.
警備強化がなされるのでは。
それは警戒はしたでしょうね。でもあちらは地元ですから。闇に乗じて忍び込まれたらお手上げでしょう。
You might as well label the entire map of Hinamizawa village around the damn construction site enemy territory. No matter how alert the police were, the locals would show them exactly how easy it was to sneak around.
警察が警備を固めてからは、むしろ挑発されたように過激化が進みました。ほら、この辺りからだいぶヒートアップしてるのがお分かりになります？
事務所の放火、建設重機の破壊工作。破壊？まさか爆弾でも？
いや、まさか。連中ですね。タンクに角砂糖を放り込む。
Interesting choice.
あれやられたらエンジン焦げついちゃいますから。
Oh. Even in Japan, it seemed there had been people doing that to the vehicles of occupying forces right after the war. Compared to misdemeanors like breaking windows, it was extremely violent and aggressive.
そこまでやられたら、地元警察の面目は丸つぶれですね。
放火はさすがにですね。
Arson, it was a bit much, a little bit of an overreaction.
それで地元警察が24時間体制の人員を大幅に増員しまして、それで建設現場への襲撃は一段落したようです。
He used the words quieted down, but that was still smack dab in the middle of the list of crimes.
で、連中ですね。現場への直接攻撃が難しくなったと知ったら、今度は個人攻撃に切り替えました。最初に狙われたのが工事事務所の現場作業者でした。
After that, there was silence. What was being described to me was a guerrilla war fought in the jungle, and I don't mean gorillas. Threats and violence against the workers. Harsh words and harsher rocks were thrown. Bring Kerchak in here. He'll put a stop to it.
かなりの告訴がされているのに、逮捕者があまり出ていませんね。
そりゃそうです。
Mr. Wright, you can't accuse every witness.
第一、目撃者なんかいないんですから。
Can't be witnesses if they don't survive.
それどころか、現行犯だったにしたって、アリバイがポンポンポンとできちゃうんです。
それはどういうことですか？
They're all covering for each other. It'll be like, no, that guy couldn't have done it. He was at the chief's house having dinner.
例え
The
ばで
chief
す
will
ね、
take it.
あなたがひなみ沢で歩いていて、ある男にナイフで刺されたとします。あなたは相手をよく覚えていて、名前も住所も特定できてるとします。
That was very nice of him to yell out his name and address as he was stabbing you with a knife.
ただし、ナイフには指紋がなく、物的証拠だけがない。まあ、ありがちな傷害事件だと思うでしょ。でも、ひなみ沢じゃ完全犯罪なんです。
Everybody is. The entire village, they're all in on it. To protect the man who is the perpetrator, they'll get their story straight and prepare an alibi. To that end, they'll probably even forge some evidence.
裁判にもつれ込ますほかないわけですが、何しろ物的証拠はない上、犯人を隠匿する証言だけは後から後から増えていく。
Yeah, that is true.
検察も書類送検には二の足を踏むわけです。
Yeah, that's true. Except the weird thing at the end of chapter 3 was that apparently the uncle didn't die until several days later, meaning that Keiichi just went nuts. I mean, quite literally, he was in the insane asylum by the end of it and was completely crazy. That was a drug trip to go through.
殺人ならいざ知らず、透析で額を切った、殴られてあざができた程度だと、仮に犯人を特定できたとしても、嫌疑不十分で送検されないことがほとんどです。
Oh, if it keeps up, it's gonna be Ace Attorney reference after Ace Attorney reference. Every case is without a doubt perpetrated by someone in Hinamizawa, but they can't identify who. Even if they could figure out who it is, they're unable to obtain enough circumstantial evidence through due process. The villagers were all extremely well informed about this, and so the malicious, vicious, and tenacious personal attacks continued.
被害者はそれでは納得できないでしょう。検察審査会に再審請求を出さないのですか？
それはですね、審査員たちがみんな厄介ごとに巻き込まれたくないと思っているからですよ。ひなみ沢関係のトラブルには首を突っ込みたがらないんです。
The inquest committee is comprised of a random selection of local residents. In the event the prosecutor fails to get a conviction, they have the power to order a retrial. It's a system designed to assert the will of the people on the actions of expert prosecutors in the legal world. In this case, however, being composed of local residents has backfired.
首を突っ込みたがらない。それはなぜです？
なんて説明すればいいんでしょう。恐れられているって言えばいいのかな。あそこはね、少し特殊なんです。
特殊？何か政治的なバックボーンが存在するということですか？
You're either in or out.
そういうのとは少し違うというか、まあ怖がられていると思ってください。この辺りは口では少し説明しにくいんです。
You'd think they could have given the chief a sprite, right? Hang on. What's the button to change the sprites? I forget. Where was the sprite? F1. Then the audio is hotkey 2. Okay. Okay, no, I kind of want to just change the sprites. Sprite style. Yeah, is there like a way to do that quickly? Is there hotkeys? There's got to be hotkeys somewhere, right? Settings? Maybe not. How did I do it before? I don't even remember. Ooh, yeah. See, this is the one we had last time. Interesting. Well, we'll keep up this song, I guess.
ああ、そうだ。 わかりやすいのがありました。
Wiping his forehead with a handkerchief, he opened a file labeled as a list of the members of the Onigafuchi Guardians.
鬼ヶ淵死守同盟の勢力にはですね、近隣の町々に強い影響力を持つ人間が多々おりまして、この辺をご覧いただけますか。
I looked. What I saw startled me. Prefectural and municipal assembly members, staff members of the Chamber of Commerce, an executive of a business association, an executive of a town council association, and a PTA liaison. There were more than a few people with a lot to say both locally and in the neighboring regions.
この界隈では、ひなみ沢のダム反対運動は皆静観しているのが普通なんです。ダムを肯定するような発言をすると、どこでどう巡って不利益を被るかわからない。何しろ近隣の町の喉元はひなみ沢出身の人間が抑えていますからね。
That's so weird with how small of a town they are.
検察審査員のリストは非公開でしょう。報復がされないように何らかの措
No
置
one
が
wants
取
to
られて
mess
い
with
るはず
Rena,
では。
and I get it.
一応非公開でプライバシーは守られてますがね。それを管理してるのは沖宮市役所の人間、つまり地元の人間なんです。守秘義務があるとはいえ、やはり人間のつながりは分かりませんからね。ひなみ沢の人間はそのあたりのつながりがことのほか強固ですから。
When you consider the obligations and duties people have in the region, the web of information thereby formed is nothing to scoff at. It's not uncommon for housewives in a neighborhood to know which kid from which house is at what grade in which school, what subjects they're good at, and what vegetables they hate, among other things.
それにほら、ひなみ沢と遅延の深い暴力団組織がありましてね。
Is it the Sonozakis?
これが今回の騒動に全面バックアップしてるらしいんです。こちらが出てくるのが一番効いてるみたいですね。
暴力団？ダムの建設反対で住民と一致？どういう利害が一致するのか
They both
読
like
みがたい
killing.
ですね。
それは難しいことじゃないです。実はですね、この暴力団の組長がですね、ひなみ沢村の出身なんです。
It's gotta be the Sonozakis.
村の重鎮の一人の婿養子にあたりまして。
Exactly what was this Hinamizawa? I had thought it was some desolate rustic village. However, for some reason they exerted a strong influence on the surrounding areas, and had a strong sense of unity. They would protect their village by any means necessary, even if that meant resorting to violence. The chief had said they had become afraid because there were numerous influential people living there. But somehow, I got the feeling that they were afraid of the village itself. There was something clearly different from what I had read in the documents in Tokyo. There was no simple residential protest against the dam. For some reason, an uneasy feeling began to nestle itself at the back of my mind. I chose the most basic way to ask my question. In other words, I directly asked what I wanted to know.
室長、これは例えば仮の話ですが。
はい。
例えば、その鬼ヶ淵死守同盟がダム計画を頓挫させるため、要人を脅迫するようなことは考えられますか？
Oh, without a doubt. The chief replied immediately.
あり得るでしょう。事実、彼らは市役所や県庁、建設省の工事事務所にも押しかけ、恫喝まがいのことをしていますし。
It could be considered they just said better get it done or else.
工事関係者の家族が不審者につけ回されたという事件も起こっています。
Suspicious. Well, that would make sense. To halt progress on the dam, they raided the construction site, destroying heavy machinery and lighting the construction office on fire. If they didn't have any qualms about doing that, threats and violence against people related to the dam would probably be no problem. But that was it. Even your everyday hoodlum could use threats and violence. However, this time it was the kidnapping of the minister's grandson, an abnormally high-level crime. Not only was pulling off the kidnapping difficult in the first place, but so was maneuvering to have the minister surrender to their demands immediately. There was no way this was the work of amateurs. Did these people have the power to enact this large of a crime? The Sonozakis and the Yakuza? Yeah, that was the heart of the matter. Was the Onigafuchi Guardians an organization capable of pulling this off? In order to ask that question once again, I chose the most basic method.
例えば、政府要人の関係者を誘拐して脅迫。
Don't just tell them what happened.
あり得ると思い
It's
ます
not
か？
like there's like a hush order on this or anything. There's no way they could pull off something that big. That was the answer I most hoped for. If it was that answer, my work was as good as halfway done. I might be able to get back in time for my wife to give birth. After you took like a 12-hour train ride? I don't think so. If your wife is in labor for that long, that poor woman. That was how it was supposed to be. The chief, without a hint of hesitation, replied,
やるかもしれません。
Oh no!
そこの知れない連中ですから。
Sorry, Yuki. It seemed like my work wouldn't end so simply after all. Get the doctor to film a video of it.
おう、赤坂君か。ご苦労さん。担当地域での情報収集はどうですか？
順調です。これから現地警察の公安と接触できることになりましたので、
Are we meeting
現地へ向かう予定です。東京の調査の方は。
I like Uisi. I also don't like him, but I like him.
他の職員も順調に調査を進めているよ。
I like him in the sense that he's competent and actually seems to be trying to get to the bottom of things. I don't like him in the sense that he takes teenage boys to Hooters.
でも調べる団体が星の数だからね。そんなに悠長に時間もかけられないし。
There was no new developments at this time. No matter how suspicious this Onikafushi Guardians was, if they solved the case in Tokyo, my job was done. It looked like my wishful thinking wouldn't come to pass. Hanging up the phone, I let my gaze drift outside the window to the valley of unfamiliar buildings.
赤坂さん、今お貸しできる車が戻ってきました。ご案内しますので、こちらへどうぞ。
Is it Uisi's car?
すみません。
That's my car. Don't take it. He showed me the elevator to the underground parking lot, where a battered sedan was waiting for me. That the steering wheel kept drifting to the left was a little concerning, but it would be enough for me to get around for a while. Is it weird that you want that desk calendar? Maybe. I wasn't paying attention. My destination was Shishibone City, XX Prefecture, an area under the control of the Onikafuchi Guardians. The Okinomiya police station was right on the front lines. Higurashi when they cry. Okay. No choices yet. Okinomiya XX Prefecture. The police station. Let's go. Ooh-wee-see. Shishibone City was, as far as provincial cities went, rather behind the times. Okinomiya, recessed in the mountains, was even more remote. With little change between the seasons, all that was left was the tepid passage of time. It made for a rather drab town. There was no tourist attractions or local delicacies. Without even a strong regional industry, it was simply dull. Just looking at the monotonous and peaceful townscape, it was hard to catch a glimpse of the radical resistance of the Onikafuchi Guardians. The atmosphere of boredom didn't hint at the Okinomiya police station being on the front lines of the dam conflict, nor of the numerous incidents that I heard about at the prefectural headquarters.
おはようございます。違反金の納付ですか？
いえ、公安部の本部屋さんにアポイントがあります。赤坂とお伝えください。
Handaya.
失礼しました。少々お待ちください。
The clerk, who thought I was there to pay for a parking violation at first glance, after fumbling with an unfamiliar extension number, told the person on the line they had a visitor.
どうもどうも。赤坂さんでいらっしゃいますか？
Oh no, this is
縁
not
のはる
Uisi.
ばるお疲れ様でした。こんな部屋で申し訳ありませんね。応接室を押さえてあったんですがね。議員さんが突然お越しになっちゃったんで追い出されちゃいまして。
He kind of sounds like an older Sunohara. I would hesitate to call where we were a conference room, as it was very small and cluttered. The cramped space was packed with lockers. I had the impression that it was more of a change room that doubled as one for smoking. You can tell that just by taking a whiff of the air. Listening to his crude chortles, I didn't get much of a feeling that Hondaya, who was the head of the local public safety division, was much of an intellectual. But I knew that, in exchange, he had both experience and absolute confidence in his instincts.
ご多忙中、突然お邪魔して申し訳ありませんでした。警視庁から参りました。
Akasaka is way too polite for a guy who has to miss the birth of his child for work. I would be way grumpier than this.
よろしくお願いします。
公安部の本田屋です。よろしくよろしく。県警防隊の三階部長から協力を惜しむなと脅されておりますので。
It's like the Mythbusters, but more cooler, but also not as cool. Are they gains that bust people up, or are they people who bust gains? I hope the second one. I thought that was a pretty funny joke too, Hyundai.
暴対県警の暴力団対策本部です
Yeah,
か
crime prevention, so they bust gains.
うちじゃ鬼ヶ淵支所の連中は暴力団の延長に位置づけてますんでね。あれを善意の住民運動だなんてあんた、東城もいいとこですわ。
They said the prefectural office too had the Onikafuchi Guardians was linked to the local mob. Rocky's here, and he's gonna be real mad. If I recall correctly, the adopted son of somebody influential was a lieutenant in that gang.
そりゃ逆。全然逆ですよ。暴力団の活動があって、それに住民団体が大義名分みたいにくっついていると、そういう風に考えてください。
Maybe.
逆。
Hyundai was just about rolling with laughter. These jokes aren't even funny! It's like my videos. This was slightly different than the info given to me at the prefectural office, but somebody embedded locally would be more knowledgeable. While we were talking, occasionally some people who seemed to be detectives would come in and change. Bro, right here? Come on! Sorry, man, I gotta change into my swimsuit. I'm going to swim at the Y. You can't change at the Y, but we have the changing room right here. Bro, can you please do this somewhere else? That's okay, I don't mind. Yeah, but I do! One of those individuals, noticing Hyundai's guffaws, came up to us. Hey! Finally a familiar face! Finally a sprite! My gosh! Oh my god, why does this sound like Animal Crossing music? This does not belong in a horror game. Uisi, boy, am I glad to see somebody who has physical graphics.
おお、クラちゃん。ちょうどよかった。クラちゃんも入ってよ。
Yes,
こちら、
please!
はるばる東京の警視庁からお見えになった赤坂警部。
Inspector Akasaka.
警部だなんてまだまだ新米です
No, I like it.
赤坂で
Inspector.
すよろしくお願いします
初々しいのがいいですね。採用は今年ですか？
You bet, kid. I couldn't help feel like but I was being ridiculed. That's not what it said at all. Let's try that again. I couldn't help but think I was being ridiculed, so I only responded with a forced smile. I could tell that this new person was like Hondaya, the type who had confidence in their instincts and experience. I really didn't like those types of people.
赤坂さんにもご紹介します。こちらは刑事部の大石君。赤坂さんがお問い合わせの S 号の件なら彼が詳しいです。
S file.
S 号
園崎の
Yep.
S。
There it is.
S 号ってのはですね、園崎家が関連している件を示す。
I bet you the S file is
みたいな
way
もんなんです。
thicker than all the other files put together. Sonozaki? Come to think of it, I remembered when I was poring over the documents at the headquarters, there were quite a few people with the last name Sonozaki popping up.
確か園崎氏は鬼ヶ淵死守同盟の役員でしたね
What a shock.
確か会計だったと思います
The treasurer, sure. The two of them were surprised when I rattled off what post that Sonozaki held. After a moment, both of them erupted into laughter.
赤坂さんでしたっけ？あなたお勉強家さんですね。
Like, thanks.
ひょっとして同盟の連中の主要人物全部暗記してるんじゃ？
暗記というほどではありませんが一応鬼ヶ淵死守同盟の
I
幹部
could
リスト
never
は
be a
一読し
detective.
ま
I
した
would forget these names immediately.
じゃあ会長と副会長は？
会長は現ひなみ沢村村長の
Oh
三
yeah,
好喜一郎氏
that guy. The guy who Shion murdered.
副会長は町会神社部長の古出氏
Oh! Is that Rika, or are her parents still alive?
会計が園崎を領して会計監査は牧野
Oryo
氏
Sonozaki. Who the heck is Makino?
教頭部長が君
That
吉
is
義
eerily
郎氏
close to Makina,
広
and
報
I'd
部長
rather
が
forget about
園
her.
崎貞夫氏
That's a lot of Sonozakis.
赤坂さん、あなたなかなかやりますね。
Let's get some other music in here, shall we? Oh, yeah. Oh, wait, hang on. No, I want yeah, this one. Yeah, this is the good song.
給料安いけどうちに来ません
Hard pass.
うちに一番必要で一番いないタイプですよ
Yeah, I gotta remember this is in the past. So yeah, it's Rika's dad. Oh man, if we meet Rika's dad, that would be interesting.
でちなみに園崎貞夫は青年部長なんです
Who the heck is Shadow Sonozaki? What a ominous name.
惜しいですね広報部長は園崎忠孝
Who are all these people? Feeling like I wasn't being complimented at all, I started settling into an uncomfortable mood. However, I was becoming more and more aware that I was the weakest link in the investigation, so I just had to bear with it. I didn't mean for that feeling to show up on my face, but the crafty detectives didn't let that slip by.
バカにしたつもりはないんですお詫びと言っちゃなんですが
Why don't I
なんで
take
した
you to
ら村を
Hooters?
実
It's my
際にご案内
favorite
しましょう
restaurant. For somebody with no feel for the area like me, it would be a great help. I couldn't have asked for more.
鬼ヶ淵死守同盟ってのは結局ひなみ沢村の対外的な別称に過ぎません村を知ることがあなたの仕事の近道だと思いますよ
That's true. They'll definitely talk to the cops.
いかがです
The residential movement, in other words, held influence over the whole region. So the leader of the movement was the leader of that influence. Just like that, the thought processes in the region would become the overall personality of the movement. Just like Uisi had said, in order to learn what they were really like, this regional force behind the dam protests, getting to know the village was the quickest way.
よろしくお願いします
Nodding back without skipping a beat, Uisi laughed in satisfaction and stood up. Boy, road trip with Uisi! Let's go. Yeah, it could be Mion's mom. Not sure. Oh, this is just the car noises again. If I took the information I learned at the professional office from Hondaya to heart, if my position was exposed, my personal safety was at risk. The opponent was an extremist group who had no qualms about using threats or violence against somebody. If my personal info was leaked, it wouldn't be hard to imagine that I'd be in danger, whether on the job or not. Thinking that, I felt a little nervous.
連中は顔覚えるの早いですからね私と一緒にいるところを見られると多分月並みですがねこいつを身につけておいてください
Or fake mustaches? Uisi handed me a pair of an incredibly suspicious disguise comprised of a baseball cap, sunglasses, and a mask. I didn't want to get all hot and stuffy, but Uisi's warning was probably right on the money. Considering that, I put them on with appreciation. He's totally gonna haze us. Just because I made him put on this stupid outfit. This is going into the cringe album. I looked so suspicious that Uisi had to smile wryly.
どこまで話しましたかね
御三家という旧家が村を支配しているというところまでです
Yeah, the Onikafuji Guardians was the same as the village of Hinamizawa itself. Meaning there was a direct correlation between being an executive in the alliance and being a leader in the village, as Hondaya had told me a short time ago. If the village was ruled by 3 ancient families, then it would mean the Onikafuji Guardians was ruled by those same 3 families.
県警の資料には何て書いてありました死守同盟のリーダー格とかそういうことについて
The documents I was using were classified. If I responded to Uisi's question, it would be a breach of security. However, most likely, this man, I judged, was more well-versed in the situation than any of the documents at the Prefectural Police Department, so I decided to answer him. You better not break that.
同盟の会長は現村長の君吉喜一郎
Uisi, upon hearing that, let out a small chuckle. For him to ask that and to laugh at the answer, as it was recorded in the documents, meant that that wasn't the case in reality.
では君吉氏以外の影の人物がいると県警の持ついや一般的な情報とは異なり
君吉のじいさんなんてただのお飾りです
Oh yeah, the Sonozakis are definitely the
そ
ones
もそ
behind
もこの
everything.
村じゃ村長なんてポスト自体も形式だけなんです
つまり同盟も村も本当の意味で支配している別の存在がいるそれが先ほどおっしゃられていた御三家
まあそのあたりは これからご説明します。
All of a sudden, with a thunk, the car suddenly lurched. Bro, did you just run over somebody? It's just a speed bump. On the highway? The paved road had given way to a gravel one. At the same time, the scenery outside the window had changed. Looks the same to me. The Hinamizawa Dam project must be withdrawn. Overthrow the shameless puppet of a governor. The dam will submerge the natural beauty of Hinamizawa. Protect the village from the unethical dam. Fear the wrath of Oyashiro-sama's curse. Demolish the dam. Those involved must go away. I'm surprised nobody wrote damn the dam. The construction office must respond. The construction office manager must negotiate with us. Signs and banners crowded the roadside. Even reading the brush-scrawled words was daunting. It was as though where the road just changed was a border with a different country. At that moment, I was startled by the car suddenly braking. Looking ahead, a barricade had been erected. About 5 or 6 protesters, wearing masks and helmets to hide their faces, were blocking the road, yelling at us angrily to stop.
これは何ですか？検問？
はあ？懲りない連中だな。
Uisi's like, you block the road, you get run down. Uisi snorted as he rolled down the window and leaned out.
おいおいおい。あんたらダメだよ、こんなとこで道を塞いじゃ。
Yeah, come on. If you're going to protest, you cannot block the road. I do not have sympathy for you if you get run over if you are protesting and blocking the road. As Uisi glared at them with a malicious laugh, they visibly faltered.
道開けてくださいな。それじゃ通れないでしょ。
Who would have thought it was Uisi's car? That panicked thought seemed to make them lose their presence of mind.
大石刑事の車と分かってればこんなご無礼はし
See?
なかったん
He
ですね。
commands respect. I appreciate it.
大石刑事、いつもの車はどうされました？
Oh, he's using a different car. No wonder.
車検ですか？
そんなところです。台車ってのはどうにも馴染みませんね。
Judging from the brief conversation, I could guess that they were familiar with the license plate of the car Uisi normally used. In other words, if they knew the car belonged to the police, they would have hidden the barricade. What they were doing was so obviously obstruction of traffic. A blatant crime.
そっ
Yes,
ちの怪しい男は誰です？あんた、顔を見せてくれませんか？
I could, but I won't. The man glared at me menacingly. Wearing a mask and sunglasses made me look rather particularly dubious. Would not showing my face get me into some unnecessary trouble? I turned to Uisi to see what I should do.
彼の顔は勘弁してあげてください。まだまだ新米でシャイなんですからね。
That is technically
不
true.
審な輩じゃないか確認しようってだけです。
No, 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 no.
最近のひなみさんは物騒ですからね。
Just pay no attention to the man with the fake mustache.
あんたのうち鏡歪んでるのと違います。
Good one, Uisi.
あんたのその面の方がよっぽど不審ですよ。
Nice mask. It's just Quasimodo.
な。
The men and Uisi continued to talk like that, feigning smiles at one another. However, from the beginning to the end, I couldn't get over the feeling I was sitting on a powder keg.
ゴミの不法投棄車両まだ減らないんですか？オタクたちも本当に
Hey, Hinamizawa residents, have you stopped illegally dumping trash?
警察の方にもご理解とご協力をいただけて助かりますよ。
During that conversation, the barricade was moved, leaving a gap wide enough for a single car to get through. Uisi lightly honked the horn once and began to roll the car forward. I could see the men's antagonistic glares at the back of the car in the rear view mirror.
何ですかさっきのは。勝手に行動を封殺するなんて。
もちろん犯罪ですよ。
Yeah, why didn't you just load up the back of the car?
目くじら立てても始まりませんがね。連中の主張じゃですね。村内に不法投棄をするトラックが出没するっていうんです。
What were they dumping?
それを封じ込めるために不審車両を検問してるって話だそうで。
Oh, sure. That's why they're stopping cars and not trucks.
不法投棄？
Yeah, someone dumped the Colonel Sanders statue in the dump.
参拝を勝手に捨てようとする悪徳業者のことですか？
警察が何の手も打たないから自分たちで自衛するっていう論法でしてね。まあ 参拝なんて話はどうせ自演だからどうでもいいんですがね。
自演？
連中うまい作戦なんですよ。ダム現場にですね、工事妨害のために参拝ゴミを自分たちでばら
Oh,
まいて
real
るんです。
classy.
で、それを悪徳業者のせいってことにして臨検を設置すると。
Ooh, corruption to the highest.
それで工事車両をいちいち足止めしてチクチクと妨害してるってわけなんです。
I feel like everyone's unlikable in this situation. It's just like real life.
鬼ヶ淵死守同盟の抵抗運動の一つ。
That dirty, underhanded methods.
多分今の検問でこの車のナンバーが割れましたからね。もうこの先には一切検問の真似事はないと思います。
There, guys, at least you got a new license plate. Just clear the way for him when
連
you
中
see
も
it.
私を怒らせると得をしないことだけは
Yeah, you have the
よ
power
ー
to
く
arrest
骨身
them.
に染みているようですからね。ね。この車が工事関係車両だと知れるとですね、散々検問で足止めを食らうばかりか、投石や鉄釘のばらまきなんかも食らうって噂です。あなたも
Wow.
身元が割れないようにせいぜい気をつけた方がいいですよ。公安なんてバレたらどんな目に遭うやら。
Yep. At least he was acting like we were talking about something fun, but for me it was no laughing matter.
なのでどこぞの内戦の国に迷い込んだような錯覚です。
あんた、そりゃうまい言い方です。
Pretty apt.
今言われたのはまさにその通り。
At least he turned to me with a grin and a menacing laugh.
ここはね、戦争地帯なんですよ。
The car slowed down a bit as we went down a narrow road through some farmland.
あそこの森の中に家があるのが見えます？古い感じの。
Looking at where Uisi was pointing, there certainly was an old, traditionally designed house.
あれが村長の君吉のじいさんの家です。君吉本家とも言いますな。分家筋が多いですから御三家の一つにあたります。
御三家、ひなみ沢村を支配している旧家ですね。
そうそう。でもう一つが古出家。
I want to see Rika's house.
こっちは分家どころかもう神主一家しか残ってませんがね。ちょうどあっちの方にね、
Oh,
神
that's
社
right.
がありまして、
Rika is the last Furude.
そこの神主をしています。ちなみにね、死守同盟の事務所はその神社の敷地内にあります。
The office of the Onikafuchi Guardians. If these guys were the enemy, that would make their shrine their stronghold.
そこを見ることはできますか？
神社は古出家の私有地でね、警察といえど令状がないと踏み込めません。
True dat.
電柱のバックには村の息のかかった議員もいますからね。
Yep.
警察にも強いところと弱いところがあるってことです。
Yeah. They can just say come back with a warrant.
御三家とは言ってもですね、そりゃだいぶ大昔のことなんだそうです。大昔はその御三家ってのは合議して村のいろいろなことを決めてたらしいですな。
ということは今は違うということですね。
あんたいちいち察しがいいですね。さすが高学歴。
The car braked to a halt with a squeal. Ahead of where we were stopped were several signs. Private property beyond. No trespassing. Beware of poisonous snakes. If they bite you and it kills you, it's venomous snakes, not poisonous. Danger. Turn back. Intruders will be charged with an entry fee of 1,000,000 yen. That seems a little excessive. Signs were erected here with things like that written on them. The road was separated from the forest by a chain link fence wrapped in barbed wire.
私有地なんでここまでです。この先は監視カメラがいくつも仕掛けられてます。うっかり道に迷いましたなんて論法が通じる相手じゃありませんからね。
この先がそうなんですね。
The people currently controlling Hinamizawa and the Onikafuchi Guardians were neither the Kimiyoshi family nor the Furude family, but the last of the three.
この先にあるのが御三家の一つ。ひなみ沢村を影から支配する連中です。
Among the list of executives recorded in the documents, the number of people with the last names from the three families was quite high. Of course, Sonozaki was no exception. However, at the top was the Kimiyoshi family. If the Kimiyoshi family seemed to be in charge, the rulers behind the scenes were the Sonozaki family. This double-layered structure implicitly told me that this village had both a light and a dark side.
園崎家の頂点は現当主の園
We
崎
still
お
haven't
涼
met
とい
her.
うばあさんです。園崎天皇なんて呼ばれるくらいにその発言には影響力があるそうです。気をつけてくださいよ。市長だって最敬礼でお迎えするような VIP ですからね。
I would hate living there.
まあ、ひなみ沢と周辺の町に住む村の親族の数千の評伝を固めてるわけですから、政治家は頭上がらないんでしょうが。
Well, that's true. It's all about the votes. It's not about actually being, like, genuine and doing good. No, it's about just getting the power, right?
つまり
Say whatever you need
そ
to.
の人物が鬼ヶ淵死守同盟の事実上のトップということですね。
そうなります。
With those words, Uisi pulled out a well-worn cigarette box. The suspected kidnapping of the minister's grandchild and subsequent threats. Were these part of the hidden plot by the Onigafuchi Guardians in order to have the Hinamizawa Dam project cancelled?
あなた、東京からはるばる調べにいらしたんですよね。
ええ、そうですか。何か。
じゃあほら、あれだ、犬飼大臣への直訴事件の絡みですかな。要するに、あれで要注意団体ってことで公安がマークすることになったと。そういう感じですか。
Oh, he sure knows a lot.
大石さんこそ、お察しが早くて助かります。
While exhaling out cigarette smoke, Uisi smiled broadly, like I'd just pulled a good one on him. Or so I thought. His smile disappeared suddenly.
嘘でしょ。だから、直訴事件でマークがついたっての、嘘でしょ。
Uisi knew there was no way that Tokyo HQ would dispatch an investigator over something as minor as a direct appeal. If they were to dispatch someone, it would have to be for a more dire reason. He had figured out as much. I thought of myself as the type of person who doesn't let things show on their face. In front of his watchful gaze, however, I felt that what I was thinking was completely laid bare. Even though you're wearing a mask? Uisi silently lit another cigarette, as if waiting for me to interject during this awkward pause. I see. So this was a veteran detective's way of getting someone to spill information. But, as long as I realized this, there would be nothing more. If I didn't open my mouth, I wouldn't have to lose anything. It's sunset. Still waiting for you to say something. All I had to do was stare out the window and enjoy the scenery until Uisi gave up. We literally waited until sunset, and he's just like... Uisi's just smoking like 8 cigarettes and over. I was just like, I can stand the awkward silence as well as you can. It's like, I don't think that's true, Uisi. I don't mind silence at all.
あなたって人は本当に隠し事が下手な人ですね。
And you're really bad at driving, but you don't hear me complaining.
そういう素直で初々しいの悪くないな。
Uisi smirked as he twisted out his third cigarette, while I tried not to let him notice that I had yielded completely. At first, I thought I'd won, but at the very least, Uisi had ascertained that I was hiding something. The opposite of Keiichi. Yeah, Keiichi's the worst at keeping his mouth shut. Meaning that I might have ended up marching to his tune. Uisi started up the engine once again and began to move the car.
素直なところを教えてくれりゃもっとお力になれると思ったんですがね。
素直に話したらどう力になれるんです？
If the cat was out of the bag, I might as well use it to catch some mice.
内容によりけりですがね。ひなみ沢界隈に詳しい情報屋に引き合わせてあげてもいいですよ。
協力員ですか？
Is it Satoko's parents?
そっか。
That would be
あ
interesting.
んたらはそう呼ぶんでしたね。
Is it Rika's dad?
どうして私の任務に興味を？
Is it Mr. Noodle?
大石さん。
そりゃあんたと同じです。常に知るのが私たちの仕事じゃありま
It's
せん。
your business to keep the peace. Being able to meet with Uisi's informant was an extremely compelling opportunity. We were looking to recruit somebody familiar with the area to collaborate with our intelligence. In the end, there was no better method for finding people than asking. We were always taught, however, that the rank-and-file police were no better than monkeys. Unlike us, they were careless with confidential cases. We looked down on them because like they'd run their mouth off in a drunken stupor. Uisi was an outlaw even amongst them, and here I was lost on whether or not I should tell him about the kidnapping of the ministry's grandson. If you do that, there might be repercussions, yo!
その情報協力員はどの程度鬼ヶ淵死守同盟に精通を？
あんたも公安の人間ならわかるでしょう。そんなの私の口からたとえあなたにだって話せるわけないじゃありませんか。
What if I gave you 220s? Protect your sources. That was the first principle of dealing with confidential information. In that regard, it seemed that Uisi wasn't one of those monkeys. Should I trust him and ask for his help or not? I sense a choice coming on. Which means we are making a save.
あなたは国。私は金に雇われてますがね。私たちの職務はそう大きくは違わないと思っています。力になれると思うんですがね。
However, I had trouble believing that this crafty old man would simply help me just like he claimed. Now, how should I go about this?
大石さんほどの方が無償で力になってくださるとはちょっと思いがたいですが。
Oh, the Animal Crossing music's bad.
そりゃ下心がないわ
Well,
けじ
it's
ゃない。
not. I made a bet with what's his name that I could get information out of you. I gotta get them $10.
あんたらは
I
確
told you the
か
pay sucks.
協力員に支払える謝礼用の予算を持って領収書不要な予算をそいつでですね情報屋
This
との
guy
接
is
触
such a
にかか
sleazebag.
るコスト
No, I don't like Uisi anymore. Maybe you could give me a little bit of the money.
つまり情報屋と渡りをつける謝礼をあなたにお支払いしろということです。
I am not doing. If they give me a choice whether to do this, I am not doing this. I'm the goody two shoes.
取引内容が明快で助かります。
He certainly was something else for being able to brazenly state his ulterior motive like this money. Rather than him doing this out of the kindness of his heart, everything was a lot clearer if he was being compensated for this deal. I thought that he was the type of man who was good at these backroom dealings.
誤解しないでくださいよ。お金が必要なのは私にじゃなくて情報屋になんです、ね。
Look, little Judy needs a Christmas this year, alright?
まあ支払いの関係上お金は私が預かりますよね。
That's not suspicious at all.
支払いはいつ？
今すぐがいいですね。
What a sleaze!
ないなら明日でもいいんですよ。
I would gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today. I pulled out a wallet that was different from my personal one. Was it even going to give me the choice? The price was pretty much fixed depending on what kind of information I was paying for. In this case, the payment was up front. Also considering the fact that I didn't know what kind of info I would get, I shouldn't pay too much. When I suggested that, Uisi suddenly stretched out his hand and tightly grasped the contents of the wallet. It's not even giving me the change. She's like, I'll just take it all.
こういう時はですね、ケチケチしない方がいいんです。
This is so corrupt.
大丈夫、大丈夫。損はさせませんから。
わかりました。
Wow, that's not one of the choices they're giving you. It's like, we're not giving you the choice whether to play corrupt cop and pay the guy money that who knows what it'll be used for. No, we just assume everyone would want to do that. We're saving the choices for whether you want to do one really bad thing or a second really bad thing.
ケチケチしないことにします。
で、調べたい情報は何です？内容によって多少アプローチが変わることもありますので。
他言無用を誓ってもらえますか、大石さん。
誓うまでもありませんよ。
That's cap. You swear a lot.
私もあなたたちと同じ。職務上知り得たことは他言できませんからね。
You're going down a bad path, Akasaka.
わかりましたよ。誓います。ここで聞くことは他言無用です。それに。あなたのおかげで溜まってたツケを全部返されて
He's not even pretending to be legit.
私は少なくとも金の絡んだ約束は絶対に違いませんよ。
So bad. I was still unsure if I should trust him until the very last moment, but in the end I broke down. Uisi wasn't the type of guy I could trust 100%, but there was no mistaking he had access to underground information networks. In order to accomplish my mission swiftly, I needed his cooperation. Oh, bruh, you're not getting back to your wife in time for the birth. Like, it's not happening. I set my resolve.
鬼ヶ淵主導名がある事件に関与しているか否かを調査しています。
ある事件？
犬飼建設大臣が何者かに脅迫を受けている可能性があります。
可能性とはまた遠回しな言い方ですね。
大臣の近辺に内通者がいるらしいのです。その内通者によって高度に監視されているらしく、大臣は脅迫初期から屈服している様子です。警察へも我々へも。
Guess he didn't outright say what had happened, but like he said what happened.
なるほど。だから脅迫を受けている可能性という言い方になると。
Once a sneaky crook, always a sneaky crook, DX.
だとすると妙ですね。大臣が誰にも通報しないなら、どうしてあんたらは事件を知ったんです？
If we didn't spy on the minister's private life, we would never have found out.
その説明は私が情報屋に提供する必要がないと思われるので割愛します。
Luisi had apparently caught on and quietly chuckled when I refused to explain.
なるほど。大臣の近辺にスパイがいるらしいから、公安だけの極秘調査ということになったわけですか。
Weird. Akasaga's getting canned by the end of this, or he's dying. Probably dying.
そりゃ確かに穏便な話じゃないですね。
ことを公にすれば、大臣の政治生命も含め、政変に発展する可能性は極めて高いでしょう。犯人グループの目的がそこにあるならば、有識事態に発展する可能性があります。
政府の列島改造は、まあいろいろ方々との衝突も多いらしいですからね。どんなささやかなケチでも一つつけば、野党勢力がドット票を伸ばす可能性もあると。
大臣がどのような要求を受けているのかは現在調査中です。ですが脅迫の方法だけはほぼ分かっています。
何です？
大臣の孫の
Never mind, he just outright said it.
周辺は否定していますが、最後の目撃から見てすでに誘拐後72時間が経過していると思われます。
This is so gonna come back to bite us, no question.
3日ですか。波の身代金目的ならもう決着してますね。
I know.
金銭でなく大臣に何らかの政治的なアクションを要求している可能性が極めて高いでしょう。
They want him to do the binky dance at the next presidential debate.
それを我々は黙認するわけにはいきません。
で、それの犯人グループとの可能性として鬼ヶ淵死守同盟がリストに上がったわけですね。
そうです。
大臣の孫を誘拐してダム計画の撤回を求めるか。
I know, he was kidnapped by the legendary and very dangerous Kid Napper.
どうでしょう、大石さん。
It's like Kid Rock, but a lot nastier.
その可能性はあなたから見てあり得ると思いますか？
Luisi seemed to ponder the idea for a while. The section chief at the regional office had responded immediately with, "It's possible." However, Luisi, who was this well informed about the matter, was hemming and hawing. Finally, just a little bit. He said something that was really just a little bit strange.
明治前まではですね、この辺りはひなみ沢村って名前じゃなくて鬼ヶ淵村って呼ばれてたそうです。うちのばあ様の受け売りですがね。
Very nice. Let's get a new psalm in here. Ooh, yeah. This topic was so completely and suddenly unrelated to the subject of the kidnapping of the minister's grandson that I was taken slightly aback.
鬼ヶ淵村。あ、それで鬼ヶ淵主同盟という名称になったわけですね。
鬼ヶ淵村ってのはですね、人食い鬼の住む村だと言われてたんだそうです。今でも村人は自分の体に鬼の血が半分流れてると信じてます。
人食い鬼。
Yeah, I don't believe it.
それ何の話ですか？
情報ですよ。さっきあなたからたくさんもらっちゃいましたからね。少しもらいすぎました。
Yeah, you did tell him too much.
その分サービスしてあげてるんですよ。
Luisi finally smiled, but it didn't seem like he was fooling around.
先を続けてください。
人食い鬼たちはですね、 普段は仙人と崇められてひっそりと暮らしているんですがね、やっぱり人食いですから定期的に麓の村に降りてきては獲物をさらっていったんだそうです。それをですね、鬼隠しと言いまして。
Demoned away. It was the first time I had heard such a peculiar phrase. However, I felt something slightly ominous from this horrifying tale. I didn't do that. Horrifying tale of demons abducting people in order to eat them. Probably because it's a creepy story.
ほら、よく世間一般に神隠しっていうのがあるじゃないですか。人がある日突然失踪してしまうとそう言うでしょ。この辺りでは同じことがあると鬼隠しって呼ぶんです。
その昔話と本件に何か？
いえいえ、直接的には何の関係もない。ただのおしゃべりですがね。
I'm just talking about, weird stuff. It's a hobby of mine. Ka-thump, ka-thump. The car shook. At some point, the gravel road had changed to a paved one.
ただ、何です？
Can I take the stupid mask off?
この土地に鬼隠しという名の失踪、誘拐を暗示するキーワードがある。ということだけはお話ししておこうと思いまして。今回の大臣の孫の誘拐と関係あるかは分かりませんがね。まあ、深い話ではないんです。
Luisi's gonna blab about this to everyone at the police station. Someone's gonna post it on their YouTube feed.
そんな
And
言
then
われの
Agasaka's
話
gonna
が
be
あ
in
る
big dude.
ということだけでもね。
You broke the boundary of confidentiality, but Luisi said he wouldn't. And he said that he needed the money from his Mushon debts. Onikakushi, human-eating demons coming down to the foothills and abducting their prey. Then, in order to cancel the dam project that threatened to submerge the village they lived in, did they demon away the minister's grandson? Then, had they already made an example out of the minister's grandson and eaten him alive? I don't think so.
ちょっと興味深い昔話ですね。
鬼たちの村にみだりに踏み入れば、たちまち囚われ食い殺される。だから鬼が淵村には近づくんだ。今時の若者はこんな迷信信じませんがね。沖宮の明治生まれの年寄り連中には今でも真面目に信じてるのが多いですよ。
Hinamizawa village was feared by the people in the area. I recalled that piece of information I heard from the Prefectural Public Safety Division. Then why the heck did Keiichi's family move there?
何しろこの辺は田舎ですからね。迷信なんかが平気で幅を利かせてるんです。東京から来られた赤坂さんにはちょっと想像もつかないでしょうがね。
The man-eating demons, as the price for violating the sanctity of their village, kidnapped the minister's grandson and swallowed him whole. That ludicrous idea flew through my head. It was so absurd, I was half disgusted with myself. At least he was just teasing me. Stupid. It was all really so stupid. Come to think of it, by then I may have already been seized by the curse of that dubious village. For me to realize that would take a little more time. Oh, is he gonna turn into Keiichi from the first chapter? Where he's just super paranoid, like, the village has marked me for death! Ah! New tips unlocked! Phone call of Yuki. Record of opening remarks. Gears of fire and taste of honey. I couldn't read the last one in time. Land of the demons. Traveled to Hinamizawa. Oh look! That's Akasaka wearing the mask and the sunglasses. That didn't look suspicious at all. Let's view the new tips. This is an interesting tips music. Phone call with Yuki. She's gonna be, hey!
そうですか。
Jack Butt, you
急
missed
な
the
出
birth.
張は大変ですね。
Yep.
どうぞお気をつけて。出張はどちらへですか？もう出張先なんですか？
Whenever I headed out on assignment, she would ask where. Not just Yuki, but anybody would have asked the same question. If it was a cold place, she would urge me to pack a thick jacket. If it was far, she'd warn me to be careful on the drive over. It was just the normal everyday concern that led to asking such an obvious thing. I felt sad that I couldn't answer such a run-of-the-mill question.
ごめんなさい。言ってはいけない規則でしたね。どうかお気をつけて。
すまん、ユキ。
あなたはいつの頃からすぐに謝られるようになったんでしょう。今のお仕事に疲れた最初はあれだけはつらつと充実していらっしゃったのに。
Yuki laughed as though she had realized something. At times like this, Yuki had the magical power to see right through me.
私が入院してもう随分になりますものね。あなたもそろそろ。
There's no way she's in labor right now. She would not be having this calm of a conversation with like that.
からかうなよ。寂しがるような年じゃないさ。
さてさていかがでしょう。あなたは本当に甘えん坊さんですからね。私と一緒でないと。
No one's voice is this calm and gentle when they're in labor. Nobody's giggling like that when they're in labor.
ああ、もう。今、ユキエの頭に小悪魔の角がにょっきりと生えているのが目に浮かぶよ。君は昔から。
はぐらかさないはぐらかさない。私に構ってもらえなくて寂しい寂しいって。あなたが尻尾を振っている音が受話器を通しても聞こえてきますよ。
This side of Yuki wasn't something you could have guessed from seeing her usual modest behavior, and it was something she didn't like to show off to anybody else but me. Normally I'd poke her to hide my embarrassment and bring an end to the conversation, but I couldn't do that over the phone. Of course, Yuki was clever. She was teasing me because of that.
あなたを困らせるのがこんなに楽しいと気づいたのはいつからだったでしょうね。
そろそろ許してくれよ。とにかく君の元気な声が聞けてよかった。
そうでしょう。元気になれましたか？
I had called Yuki to keep her from feeling lonely when she was by herself in the hospital room. Of course, that was nothing more than a pretense that I, being shy, had come up with. It seemed that Yuki had long since seen through that act.
また電話をしてくださいな。私がダメな時はお父さんが相手をしてくれるでしょう。もっともお父さんが相手ではあなたのことだから電話先でも直立不動で喋っていそう。
He seemed like a respectable man. For a while longer, Yuki kept teasing me without letting me end the call. That was very plot important. We needed that. Record of opening remarks. This is going to be when Uisi, very efficiently and meticulously documented all of the confidential information that we gave him. Chairman Redacted. Members of the Redacted Party. Congratulations are due as we are celebrating 25 years since our founding. These past 25 years have seen so much growth in the Redacted Prefecture. The once quiet scenery of nothing but fields now has seen the opening of a new stop for the bullet train. And with the development of the highway, we've seen the rebirth of a modern city bursting with youthful energy. We've reaped the benefits of new businesses and industry. And with the special reverence for the residents of Redacted Prefecture have the time-honored traditions. History and culture, business and industry, with these ideals in harmony, they have accomplished in growing their city into one of Japan's foremost metropolises. Of course, the development of the Redacted Prefecture couldn't have happened without the growth of the Redacted Party. We are resolved to see every one of our campaign promises to fruition, reaching our targets definitively and expediently like arrows fired from a bow. With these arrows as fundamental bases of the Redacted Party, our members have sought to pierce the obstructions preventing the happiness of the residents of the Redacted Prefecture. But I do believe that everyone here is unlike an ordinary arrow. While being as unfaltering and straightforward, we have not neglected in seeking solutions that conform to the current day and age while also keeping an eye on the future. An arrow, once loosed, can only fly to its destination. Everyone here, however, is no simple arrow. Even once loosed from the bow, without neglecting our studies, while employing new methods, and implementing more effective and flexible ideas, thus being able to change trajectories mid-flight, we are magical arrows. The modern age marches ever forward. Sometimes it marches faster than the time taken from planning to execution. Stupid sneezes. The following part was not in the script. It is thought to have been ad-libbed by the minister. For example, there have been recently numerous problems with the Hinamizawa power plant project. Rather than forcing through the project solely because it was decided upon by the government, it is necessary to reflect on and adjust to the ever-changing needs of the residents, the region, and the next generation. The protests by the local residents that surround the Hinamizawa Dam. These are also the will of the people of Redacted Prefecture. If you feel that there is no need to listen because the project has already been finalized, then you do nothing more than shed a poor light on Japan's post-war democracy. The following is as per the script. For the lasting happiness of the citizens of Japan and the residents of the redacted prefecture, please consider these policies thoroughly. I believe, however, we have all gained something from the flexibility and foresight of the redacted party. I've taken up much of your time. However, allow me to say the following to celebrate the 25th anniversary of our founding. Chairman Redacted, members of the Redacted Party in attendance, thank you very much for today. From the opening remarks of the Redacted Party Prefectural Forum and 25th anniversary celebration. Okay, so that's the minister being like, we need to stop the damn baby. Okay. Gears of fire and the taste of honey. Why is there a bloodstain? That doesn't look like honey. What do we got? Ooh. Interesting music. The world is filled with people blessed with relationships. I know. Of course, that doesn't mean that everyone is connected to each other. It's obvious that on the other side of the planet, there are people laughing and crying who can't possibly have an effect on you. However, in the extremely limited community of the neighborhood, that sort of connection is just a matter of fact. It's quite possible that a single remarkable event could have massive consequences inside a small community. If you were to increase that in scale, a perfect stranger on the other side of the globe might become enough of a legend to have an effect on our lives. Well, it's not always that way. Like I said at the beginning, the links between people basically aren't that relevant in the grand scheme of things. Whether some household nearby is having steak or croquettes doesn't matter to me. When I put my shoes on, it doesn't matter to anybody whether I put the right one on first or the left. This much the average person can understand. But actually, in reality, this is the truth. The bonds between people are quite well defined. It's not just a matter of distance, of being far or near. For example, let's say that person A's actions have some effect on me. Even then, person B's actions could have absolutely no consequence on my life. The reverse also holds true. Just because my actions affect person A, that doesn't always mean that they affect person B as well. Let's put it bluntly. If the bonds between people are like gears in a machine, the gear that represents me meshes with some people but is isolated from others. There are some who would try arguing against this. Those people would bring up examples of gears in a clock. Each gear indeed only directly meshes with one or two others. However, if you rotate one gear, the one next to it is moved, which connects to the next one and the next. In the end, all the gears are moving. There is a logic behind this, more than enough to convince the average person. Why is the argument convincing? The answer is simple. The relationships between people are ambiguous and can only be described conceptually. How the gears are connected and how their movements are chained together can't be used as a fundamental explanation, so it throws a wet blanket on that argument. So for the people who like that explanation, I'll use the example of a clock again to refute it. First of all, to say that this world is a singular clock would be wrong. That is, there isn't only one clock. There exist many clocks in this world, each counting their own time. If you think about it, the idea that this world is just one big clock is the height of arrogance. Even if you use the analogy of gears to explain human relationships, then you should be able to explain it using an analogy of multiple clocks unrelated to a single gear. Neighbors A and B. A is a gear in the same clock as me, so it's best to remain civil. B is a gear in a different clock, so it doesn't really matter to me at all. That's the kind of clear distinction I'm talking about. You want me to say I'm being fallacious? Let's change the analogy to something more familiar so you can understand. You've probably heard the phrase, a fire on the opposite shore sometime in your life, no? For example, if your neighbor's house was on fire, you'd probably try and help put it out, wouldn't you? It'd be awful if the fire spread and burned down your own house, after all. But what if that fire was in a town on the opposite side of a river? Would you still go out of your way to help? You wouldn't, would you? Even though it would be the wrong thing to do, there's no way the fire could spread to your own house. Even if it turned into a huge conflagration, there's no relation between the houses that will spread fire to yours and those that won't. Hey, Deadbeat is playing Brotato. That's a game name, apparently. With this basic example, you should be able to see the difference between gears that are or aren't related to your own. Having said that, there's still a lot to think about, even without a river to divide it. After all, it's not a spatial problem like being on the other side of a river, is it? Why was there a blood stain in the thumbnail? Is it referring to, the construction worker getting killed? Could be. The chick in the trunk. Oh, is this, what what's her name? Not Makoto. Takano. The car had stopped. But he didn't know any more than that. For not only was he blindfolded, but locked in the trunk of the car. How could people become this powerless just by being robbed of their sight? He absolutely wouldn't have known this without experiencing it firsthand. He soon realized it was pointless to try and undo his bonds, with the confines of the trunk quickly making him lightheaded. He had no choice but to let this mild torture dull his senses. That's why, when the car stopped and the unpleasant vibration ceased as the engine was killed, he couldn't help but delude himself into thinking that he was being set free, even though nothing had been resolved in reality. Of course, he was soon removed from that delusion. He strained his ears when he heard one of the men who had abducted him, and an older man he was hearing for the first time, strike up a
お
conversation.
疲れさんです。ヒナはトランクに。騒ぎすぎで多少衰弱してるようですが、ご命令通り、傷一つ
Yep,
つ
it's
け
the
ちゃいません。
grandson, certainly.
おうおう、手間はかけましたの。
The trunk opened, letting in a blast of fresh, cool air. Even though up until now he had been thinking about getting out of that stuffy trunk, but when it was actually opened, he suddenly became uneasy. Enough so that he wished that the lid of the trunk would once again close, separating himself from them. Suddenly, somebody stroked his head. Of course, since he was blindfolded, he couldn't tell if the hand was petting him or simply evaluating how easy it would be to remove his scalp. Unable to tell the difference, he could only freeze as he imagined the worst-case scenario.
すったらん。あいそうにの。震えとんね。
Is this kid Napper?
おとなしくしばらく過ごすがよかろう。
The older man said that kindly as he gently stroked the boy's head.
ほんに辛い思いしちゃろな。だがな、おんめのおじいちゃんは優しい人だんね。すぐに助けてくれるだろうの。
Having heard nothing but the average standard dialect his whole life, the older man's distinct intonation left a deep impression on the boy. But he had no idea what he was saying. For your gramps to register as meaning your grandfather took a while to process. Eventually, the hand that was stroking his head loosened the blindfold.
目隠しはまずいっすよ。面が割れると後々まずいです。
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, it's not kidnapper, it's man.
ああ、そう
It's
かな。
man!
なんら、せめて猿靴はくらい外したらんな。
Will we get to see the
こ
kidnapper?
れぎゃ、息もできんね。
叫ばれたらまずいです。こいつのことは俺たちに任せてください。
たく、気の利かんやっちゃらな。本家にむごい仕打ちはせんにやっちゃっとる。
They are working for the Sonozakis.
そこんとこ、肝に刻むんよ。
分かってます。手荒な真似はしませんよ。小僧がおとなしくしててくれる分にはね。
The man's hand prodded roughly and repeatedly at the boy's head. A rugged man, unlike the affectionate one that had been stroking his head before. Just stay cooperative. If you struggle, there's no guarantee what will happen. That cliched threat was literally beaten into his head. Okay, at least they don't want to just, like, up and kill him right away. I guess that's nice. Thank goodness for small favors. That's the Yakuza speak, apparently. Alright. Wow, no choices. That's a little disappointing. Well, honestly, I think I'm going to end the stream there. We're just about at the 2-hour mark, and there's no telling when we're going to get the next to be continued. So, I think this is a good time to stop. I will not be streaming for the remainder of this week, so Friday and Sunday, no streams. My next one will be on Wednesday, a week from now, and we'll be continuing Higurashi Chapter 4. So that'll be interesting. It's supposed to be around like 5 hours long, so I definitely think we can finish it in just a couple streams this length. Yeah, thanks for joining in and chatting, everybody. I wish you guys a great rest of your night, and God bless everyone.